When I first bought Jedi Survivor on release, I was very excited. For me, the first game was one of the best Star Wars story-driven games I had ever played, even with its bugs, glitches, and performance issues. In my video on Jedi Fallen Order, I talk about how every good thing in the game had a bad thing to go along with it. Well, I am happy to say that the positives in Jedi Survivor do outweigh the negatives. However, this isn't because Respawn Entertainment fixed the issues I had with the first game, they just added new things that I consider to be positive. Also, there's no face cam in today's video, it's summer and hot as fuck in my room, and I foolishly decided to make my branding based off me wearing a fucking ski mask. Which is why instead of a face cam you have this beautiful image I procured here. Anyway, you're probably thinking right now, what are you ski mask wearing donkey? What are you rambling about? Well, what I'm basically trying to say is that you can pretty much copy and paste my gripes I had about the first game and put them into here and they would still all apply to some extent. So let's quickly get through some of these complaints. To start off, let's talk about the game's performance issues. Much like the first game, I played this on console and the performance is still pretty bad. Particularly when a cutscene starts, the game will always seem to stutter a little bit before it finally plays out the cutscene properly. Hitting certain loading zones in the open world does the same thing, and speaking of loading, sometimes the game doesn't load in the stuff outside of your field of vision fast enough, so you see glimpses of unloaded textures every now and again. Other than that, the fabric in cutscenes freaks out a lot, and every now and again you'll see people T-posing. Oh, they're T-posing again. Although I do like this game, I do have to say it's quite a shame that both this game and its predecessor are still in this state. I hate this shit companies do nowadays where they sell the game with all the bugs and promise to fix it later, but this game released 2 years ago now and stuff like this still isn't fixed. Although due to most of these issues being more on the goofy side, I am reluctantly willing to let this slide. Oh, I almost forgot the heal button not working sometimes when you press it is still a big issue and feels even worse in this game than it did in Fallen Order. Combat also has the same clunkiness as the first game did, although this time it feels moderately better. I think the main reason for this game's clunkiness is the fact that for a lot of the game you are fighting the wildlife rather than actual humanoid enemies, and their hitboxes just feel kind of janky. Fighting humanoid melee enemies feels a lot better than the first game, which is what leads me to this conclusion, but yeah, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that combat feels better, but it is still clunky. This game also leans a lot more heavily into the Souls-like format than its predecessor, which probably exacerbates these issues. Something I feel I did prove upon is the movement, particularly in the parkour side of things. They give you new abilities and they don't do that stupid thing some games do where you forget abilities from the first game and have to relearn them. On top of improving the movement, the new additions to the parkour are very fun to play around with, especially in the new parkour challenges you can do. Whilst we're on the subject of these little challenge areas, fuck Ogdo Bogdo and Spawn of Ogdo Bogdo and the dual Rancor fight. I played this game on Jedi Master and absolutely struggled with these two fights. Both these fights are not only dual boss fights, but the bosses have a grab attack that just one-shots you even on full health. And the hitboxes are kind of jank as well. Outside of that though, the boss fights are kind of easy and do the unfortunate thing where most of them are just normal enemies with slightly more health and damage. The game also adds 3 new stances, with 2 of them being completely new in the blaster and crossguard, and the other being the dual wield lightsabers, which were in the first game but only in the form of a heavy attack. All of these are fun to use in their own right, having both advantages and disadvantages, with the single blade lightsaber being the jack of all trades, master of none. Personally, I mained the blaster stance pretty much as soon as I got it and figured out pretty quickly that you could kind of cheese some of the bosses with the charged blaster shot, and overall just had fun with it in normal combat. I also used the crossguard stance for its heavy attack and high damage in boss fights after I had used Cal's reworked slow ability so I could get past bosses' block meters. Speaking of the slow ability, unlike the first game where it's an ability you can use essentially at any time to slow one single enemy, in this game it has an ult meter that fills up in combat, and once it is full you can use it and it slows all enemies in the area. I'll talk more about this in depth in my story section, but in the later part of the game Cal taps into the dark side of the Force, and this ability becomes even more OP than it already was, allowing you to have increased damage and essentially one-shot most enemies. There's also a new perk system which gives you a range of buffs, sometimes accompanied by various debuffs. This system combined with the new saber stance and skill tree actually allows for some build variety that the first game didn't have. I do feel however that there were more perks that cater themselves to the blaster stance more than any other stance, and there's even a shop you can eventually unlock that gives upgrades to your blaster, really making it feel like the developers were pushing this style of play. On top of this, there's also a new buddy system that you sometimes get to use in combat. However, the controls for this feel kinda clunky and unresponsive. In fact, you later unlock some new force abilities that require you to hold the right bumper, then press one of the face buttons, which is the same as the buddy ability, and they feel clunky as well. On the bright side though, there are a lot more customization options than in the first game, and you can give Cal a filthy mullet. Oh, that's fucking filthy. That is fucking filth. I want it. Anyway, let's move on to the story. We start off with Cal on Coruscant being arrested by what is assumed to be bounty hunters and about to be handed over to the Empire. From the get-go, the tone shift from this game compared to the last is palpable. There is a 5-year time gap between Fallen Order and Survivor. The last time we saw Cal, he was quite young and inexperienced and lacked confidence in a lot of things. Now Cal is battle-hardened, confident, and even more capable in the Force than in the first game. Where in the previous game, a situation like this would probably make Cal feel uneasy, here you can tell Cal is just biding his time and waiting for the right opportunity to escape. The overall tone just feels darker than the first game as well. The bounty hunters eventually hand us off to Senator Wrinklewort. Yeah, I forgot his name, okay. And Cal quickly reveals that he got captured on purpose to steal information that was on the Senator's yacht. BD-1 gets us out of our cuffs, we defeat the Senator's bodyguards and activate an EMP charge that was on his yacht. The yacht then unexpectedly crashes into where we are standing, leading us to have to climb to the yacht, where I somehow managed to fail the climbing tutorial. Fuck, what? Cal is then caught by a very basic enemy who I've killed hundreds of times before in the last game, and one of the bounty hunters. Just as the stormtrooper is about to shoot Cal, the bounty hunter kills him, and it is revealed to us that he's part of Cal's crew. Fast forward a little bit and we're introduced to the rest of Cal's crew. I would tell you all their names, but they all die in this opening mission with the exception of Bo, who saved us earlier. The ninth sister from the first game also makes a return here, but we locally slime her like Jack Dougherty, as she is essentially the tutorial boss. All jokes aside, this is a great way to show how Cal's powers have grown since the first game. Soon after this, Cal and Bo escape, making them the last of Cal's mercenary group. In this escape, the Mantis gets damaged. This leaves Cal and BD to seek out Greaves, who is currently running a cantina on the planet Kobo. On the way to find Greaves, we encountered the new main enemy faction, the Bedlam Raiders. Other than sounding like the name of a football team, these guys are essentially a local terrorist cell led by a fella named Ravis, and have acquired a bunch of battle droids from the Clone Wars to add to their forces. After meeting up with Greaves, we go searching in his basement for new ship parts for the Mantis and accidentally come across a High Republic era training area where we then meet a High Republic droid named Z. Z tells Cal that her previous master gave her a mission to activate something called the Forest Array and asks him if he could activate it instead. Cal goes to this forest array and has a vision of two High Republic Jedi named Dagan Gera and Centauri Kree talking about a hidden planet that lies beyond the Kobo Abyss called Tanalorr. The Kobo Abyss is the big eyeball looking thing in the planet's sky that essentially eats any ship that goes near it. After this vision, Cal discovers Dagan Gera with one arm and still alive in a Bacta tank. Cal frees him, hoping to recruit him, but as this conversation is happening, Dagan bleeds his Kyber crystal, revealing that he has fallen to the dark side. After fighting Cal for a bit, Ravis shows up and helps Dagan escape. After this battle, Cal, Bode and Greaves all agree that a planet that is borderline inaccessible would be a very important asset to have. They all then decide to head to the planet Jeddah, where Seer Merrin and even Eno Cordova are working to restore the Jedi archives and help a resistance group named the Hidden Path. Cordova explains that Dagan was the first ever pilot to navigate the Kobo Abyss. With his knowledge, Centauri Kree made a compass to help other people navigate the Abyss, and the Republic decided to establish a Jedi settlement on the planet soon after. However, the Republic withdrew from Tanalorr because they were invaded by an unknown army and essentially abandoned the planet. This led Dagan to be angry at the Republic, even killing numerous of his fellow Jedi attempting to retrieve a compass for himself. Seer Merrin and Cordova also agreed that this planet is valuable to them and want to help. Around this time in the story, Bode is also very vocal about keeping the Hidden Path away from the planet, as he wants it to be a refuge away from the Empire to keep his daughter, Cutter, safe, whereas Merrin and Seer want it to be used for the hidden path. To quickly fast forward a bit, we find a couple of fucked compasses, Cal fights and kills Ravers for a compass that is fixable, the Empire attacks the base on Jeddah where it's revealed that Brode is an Imperial spy and a fallen Jedi, and kills Cordova. We play as Seer for a bit where she is killed by the Big Daddy Aura Farmer extraordinaire. We track down Brode at an ISB base, Cal taps into the dark side, making his slow ability even more OP than it already was, and Brode escapes to Tanalorr with the only working compass. Cal then figures out that by aligning the arrays on Kobo and on Kobo's moon, he can also travel the Abyss. The group arrives on Tanalorr and tries to convince Brode to surrender. Brode refuses, leading to Cal and him fighting. Cal obviously wins and kills Brode. The group then holds a Jedi funeral to mourn Brode, Seer and Cordova, and also decide to adopt Cutter and plan to contact the hidden path and get them onto Tanalorr. Now, whilst I do really enjoy this story, it really does feel like the last 10% of the game is happening because all the characters are idiots. I found it kind of annoying that literally no one mentions to Brode, hey, this is a big planet, how about you live on one side and the hidden path operates on the other, so that way if the Empire does somehow invade, you will still have a high chance of being safe. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine in Star Wars that all the characters act like only one minor part of a massive planet is the only spot to go, but other than that, a genuinely amazing story. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, Cal and Merrin kiss. Ooh! But seriously, their relationship developing is a really good part of the story and it doesn't feel like a forced romance at all. So with all that being said, what are my final thoughts on the game? Well, much like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor is definitely a top tier single player Star Wars game. However, it also makes some of the same mistakes as its predecessor with performance bugs and a somewhat disappointing ending. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Bye.